Please, Leonard, Jeremy, join us again. And we also invited Simón Gonzalez, co-founder of SUSTEIN, another Catalan project. They have a stand at the Future Fair upstairs at the foyer, which you should go and visit after the session. SUSTEIN changes the status quo of healthcare waste by upcycling them into carbon-positive materials for construction. Simón González, CEO and founder of SUSTEIN, is an architect from Venezuela who studied in Barcelona the innovation in the manufacture of construction materials. Bienvenido, Simón. Welcome to the stage. A simple question might be, why healthcare waste?
Thank you. First of all, what an honor to be here surrounded by such forward thinkers, as you define them, and to be surrounded with you that explain everything of the problematic that I also would like to explain. But so, why healthcare waste? If you give me 30 seconds, I think the moment that changed for me to understand that this was a huge problem was when we were visiting the manufacturer of the company that created the sterilization machinery for healthcare waste. And it was a mind-blowing machinery. It was beautiful, a lot of investment on it to make the best care for the healthcare waste, for it not to be meaningful, to decrease the quality of the plastic. And they explained it for us for 2 hours, the huge technology, and at the end, in the last 10 seconds, they were like, and then we throw it into landfill and incineration. And I couldn't understand why such an investment of resource, economically and human, to the same output. So it was very simple to understand that this was a misunderstood waste. People think this is extremely hazardous, but we're talking about a single-use plastic. 85% is in perfect conditions. So as an architect, it was really simple to do the math into how to put such a huge amount of waste in an industry that can actually absorb this waste. That's why we manufacture thermal insulation and boards with the healthcare waste, basically.
Thank you. While preparing this session, Leonard from Flipflopi shared with me this inspiring quote, if nature were a bank, it would be saved already. So do you agree? And do you think we are still on time? Si la naturaleza fuera un banco, ya la habrían rescatado. Bueno, if you agree, and if you want to just start the discussion by saying that we are the people, the humans, still on time to rescue all this amount of plastic and waste. We are not closing the loop yet.
I think it's interesting what you said in the beginning, that in nature is not such thing as waste, no? It doesn't exist, this concept, no? So this is a human concept, and there's no doubt that we are creating and fabricating such a huge amount of waste every day. But the good news is that this is a human concept, no? So as fast as we create it, we can uncreate it, no? And this is, I think it's hope. It's a hope for me.
I guess it's a bad design from human beings to produce this amount of waste.
Yeah, for sure.
I think probably we never thought about the problem that we were creating at the beginning. And I guess it's a transition that we're going through to understand how can we deal with it and technologies that will support this transition to happen. So,
Perdona. Yo creo que el principal
I think that the main problem is not to understand ourselves as nature, human beings as nature, and this lack of link, and this means that these problems happen. If we consider ourselves that we belong to nature, then we would coexist in another way with nature. In many of the presentations, we have seen solutions.
And contribute to closing the waste loop.
Jeremy, Leonard.
Well, I agree with what you said. Like if we would see ourselves as being part of nature, we wouldn't have let it come so far. But we're humans and we are flawed. I think it was already said yesterday. We're short-sighted. And we really truly believe that the technology would do great things. And I'm an engineer, I'm a designer, I'm in there, you know. Like, I also believe that technology does great things. But if we don't close the loop, we're gonna finish ourselves. And we need to come back to that realization that we're part of the system and that there's one Earth, and a single linear process of something can never work. And that's the limits of growth that was also already mentioned yesterday. Like, well, it needs to go circular, otherwise we don't go anywhere.
I'd say that in agreement with that is there are so many different ways to attack this, right? There's no one solution. There's a famous investor called a kind of silver buckshot rather than a silver bullet to address it. And there's so many different ways to go about it. Education, of course, is critical, right? Is dispelling myths of what actually is happening, what is not happening is really important. And being here is a great step. And how do we tell people in our community that wouldn't otherwise? How do you make the understanding of what you can do personally, what you can do with your community to make it more accessible? I think a lot of people think it's such a big problem that they don't know where to start. They don't know where to start. As it pertains to what we do is, it's pressure within the community itself, is asking questions, is actually going to a facility and asking what is happening. As your local municipality, they give out these contracts. These are lucrative contracts of how to process waste. And they are not being held to the standards and being pushed to maximize what they can actually do today, right? You have oftentimes too many people doing just what they have to do, not what they really need to do. And so I think education, but also speaking to those that kind of control where, you know, the problem is, at least as you're looking to address it, where it lies.
Which is the main challenge you are facing to convert the waste into resource in your projects?
I would firstly would like to add, I think something that is very important nowadays is also working collectively, because we need to work with synergies with other industries, because if we want to close the loop, it's very hard for us to do it by ourselves. We need other participants for it to happen. And I think that's where it could become a little bit of a problem, because probably not everyone is aligned, but you need to find alternatives to create benefits to each of the operational chain that you have in your process. And it's a challenge, because I find myself, for example, dealing with healthcare waste. Hospitals, they want to give me all their waste. We have too much waste. But then in the construction industry, then it's a struggle to put this waste somewhere. So closing the loop means finding synergies and collaborating together.
There's also a lot of bureaucracy, for sure, no? How to manage the waste and this kind of stuff that are also barriers. As Leonard said in the presentation, also you can change a lot with policies, no? Just a few good decisions can change dramatically the whole panorama, no? But also, and to adding there and then, it's the key to add value, and also to, in a world that is driven by benefits and costs, it's the key to add a value and create something that is more near to a product or a service or whatever than something that is conceived as waste, no? As something that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whenever you feel like asking or commenting, we also have a microphone to share with you the discussion. Yeah, we have a raised hand up there to open this roundtable discussion to all of you. Yeah, there we have
Bueno, mientras llega, a mí me
Sí.
gusta. ¿Va bien que hable en español? Porque aquí están todas hablando en inglés. Pues eso, como estamos...
So, in our project, we are again focused in closing the loop and finding solutions to closing this loop and come up with a circular economy. At the same time, it's important to rethink the system, rethink the production and consumption models which are totally unsustainable today. And we all contribute to unsustainability through consumption. So change also lays in the consumption patterns. Of course, we can come up with as many solutions as we wish in order to close the loop, but of course, we need to put pressure on the consumption model. Recently, I attended a conference on the topic of Barcelona as a lighthouse of the circular economy by 2030. And in the conference, they raised an interesting concept. What is it called again? Well, it was about those companies that produce a certain product, and they will have to pay an extra fee in order to include the recycling of the X product. It's all a matter of money. You can launch as many products as you want to the market, but if you don't pay for the recycling of the product, you're in trouble, or you can just try and avoid certain products seeing the market when they are just unsustainable.
For an amazing, absolutely amazing workshop and amazing ideas. I can't understand Spanish much, so I think that probably the answer to some of the answers to the question I want to ask has been done by the lady. But one of the things that I have not seen talks much about, and probably I'm sure you must be addressing, is the relationship with businesses, and the because the flood continues. You know, the Cocas are continuing to bring water, the Coke and the plastic waters, and so on and so on. So, in addition to the education of the consumer, in what ways have you at all addressed or been able to address the issue of production and address the issue of seduction through advertising? Thank you.
Any of you want to answer? Or
I'm happy to. So the question around how do you work with businesses, right? Because they're going to have a much larger impact on it. Something I went through towards the end of my presentation is around us building facilities which we are sorting material ourselves. We are working directly with businesses that actually want to know how much material truly is getting missed. How much material is there an opportunity for them to actually fund the recovery of? They are getting, whether it's shareholder pressure, right? Or they just have their own ESG interest within the company itself, their sustainability teams. I sometimes use that term a little bit loosely because they don't move as quickly as, of course, as we would all like. They have many companies, the largest consumer packaged good companies out there, the Cokes, the Pepsis, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, they've all issued public proclamations of 2030, 2025, 2035, they're going to have X percent of their packaging supplied by reclaimed materials. The tough part is that they have no way of getting there right now, right? It's like those that you've heard years ago around, hey, we're going to have fully autonomous cars and they're going to be ready to go by 2020. In fact, I worked at a company like that. They're not there yet because they don't have the means or they don't have the investment to do so. And so what we are trying to do, right, and we've had some success, is explaining first, here is the data. This is truly what is happening nationally or globally in terms of what material is actually getting identified and recovered. So you, again, go back to education as to, well, let's show them the data because they're all going to ask for that. So we use our vision system in order to identify and categorize this material. And then for them is just, well, they have funding, right, that they have allocated with which how much more they want to invest. And whether it's building their own facilities themselves, right, that is all good and dandy. I think it still comes from well, the majority of their product is being consumed by the end consumer. And so pressure needs to come also from the end consumer. And those are business end consumers or individuals like us. And hopefully there is some sort of nexus between the two with which businesses see the technology is there to actually address these concerns, right? But then also, kind of the economy catches up where reclaimed material truly becomes less expensive than virgin material, because otherwise, without that incentive, they are still going to produce new plastics.
Yeah, if I can may here, I agree that that is the core of the problem. As long as the recycled materials are more costly than the virgin materials, and then we get back to the true price presentation of yesterday, that process will not change, right? Because as long as some company can externalize their cost of packaging to the next point, the customer, the consumer, and they can externalize their cost again to the society, then we're not closing the loop. And so our experience with working with companies is we have worked with companies as consumer companies in that sense of like hotels, etc. We have inspired quite a lot of hotels, for example, on the Kenyan coast to ban voluntarily all of the single-use plastics. And those are important steps, but they're small steps. And whenever we encountered ourselves in conversations with companies like Coca-Cola's and Unilever's, etc., they were willing to give us lots of money. But the catch is obviously that they will be using our story to greenwash their real impact. And we engaged in conversations a few times, and we always needed to go back and say like, well, sorry, we cannot do this. But ultimately, I think it is the consumer that puts pressure and the policies that will change actual habits and will enable us to close the loop.
Yeah, and also to consider that we are part of the change, everyone, because sometimes people is just not motivated about being part of the change, because it's like, oh, okay, the world will explode or whatever, all this. It just is not motivating this point of view. But if we all consider we can create together an impact, it's also part of the making a difference.
Yes.
The open mic goes here. Yeah, and then.
Does it work? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, my name doesn't matter, but I'm investigating since 7 years open source approach to process plastic in all different ways. And I think I just catch up with what he said. The biggest problem is, yes, we don't have actually a central database. We don't have protocols. We have no means to collect the data from companies, ideas from companies. Because the most efforts are usually somewhere happening without any, let's say, publication, or, the reach is very limited and momentary, let's say, right? So whatever great thing happened sometime 2 years ago will be forgotten. Do you see what I mean? And so nobody actually can find, sorry, I have a little. So yes, just to summarize it, yes, I agree. The problem is we don't have a database, no protocols, or no real good way to share ideas, or to develop even designs, even simple designs. So we had, for instance, shredders, or extruders, and all these things. So, and what happened is that the formats alone stopped us from working together, because someone is using SolidWorks, someone is using Fusion, shooting 360, whatever. And that alone actually stops humanity from actually collaborating, let's say, in a progressive way, and yeah, cultivate knowledge basically over, in a meaningful way. That more, sorry.
So do you have like a question or?
No, I just wanted to comment actually. We are basically stuck just alone by being unable to have a global database, any approach to collect ideas or designs or whatever, or work together. So every one of you have a project, but you can't really share, or someone can build on it. And actually the most don't want to share.
Okay, thank you.
That's a big problem.
Thank you. Anyone wants to comment?
I was thinking before considering all the constraints and limits of the precious plastics, no? But there's before and after, for sure, precious plastics with all this approach of community, open source machines, and there's a whole new approach to recycling plastic, no? So even considering the limits and the constraints, I think this is huge. And more related to your question, the collective intelligence and the co-creation processes are the key to close these loops, no? Because in some point, all this mass of people are consumers, but also producers, and these kind of decisions are really important in closing the loop. But also in this collective intelligence, you have a lot of knowledge of people that probably don't have the voice or the tools to get empowered to get these solutions. And when you open up this option of the people to participate and create and everything, you can find amazing things. And this is what happened to us in the Almacén, no? That you have a bunch of different people collaborating and doing different stuff, and how you learn from other people is amazing.
Great. Yeah.
Building up on what Matías is saying, I pick up the collective intelligence concept because it's a huge problem, as it is obvious. But I wanted to remark how, for example, in this panel, we have a series of solutions from very different perspectives. Now we have material, we mention policies, we have social activation, we have communication and art, we have technology. So there are, it's a complex problem. We need to all collaborate in that, which is actually a good news, because it means that everybody can contribute to the solution. So we should not be scared from the idea that it's actually a complex problem on which each of us has to contribute from its own perspective, which is the essence of this festival as well. No? The fact that we address all the problems at once from different perspectives is also a way to transmit that everybody can contribute from their own field of expertise. But I was also interested by, well, two observations. One, the fact that I think most of you have a design background on the stage, maybe except Jeremy. And this is something interesting, no? Because maybe the designer do have this capability of think transversally. Maybe that can be one hint of what can be this binder. No? My question is what's the binder if it's a so complex problem that you just can't contribute with a bit? So how can you orchestrate, no, this to reach this solution? So first hint, we have a lot of designers on the stage, so maybe a more design thinking oriented approach. And to actually go back to Jeremy, who is not a designer, also the education can also be maybe this binder, and understanding the education in a broader way. Now, this event is an educational event. No? It's about getting people to know solution, but also we can have also a more focused consideration of the education concept now, really education in the school. So I want to bounce back the question to you. Now, what's this? If it's a collective problem with so many solutions on which we all have to contribute, how can we orchestrate this? What do you think? Also, Jeremy or Leonard or whoever wants to pick up the question.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I did never really stand still by the problem of like how to orchestrate it. But I think raising the awareness of the problem and discussing that there is solutions, and as you were saying, there is not a silver bullet. So there's not one solution. We are brought here by millions of problems, and every one of us contributes to the problem. So in the same way, everyone needs to contribute to the solution. And I think it can be easy because it is just forming habits. It starts with a small step. Just starting to do little things will create change, and it will give a positive feedback loop to yourself. And so I think it might not even need orchestration as long as we inspire people with all of the different solutions that are out there. And then everyone can pick their own field where they feel comfortable to taking those first little steps. And all of these steps together will bring us there, hopefully.
Can I add something? Because I feel it's completely accurate what you're saying, and I was thinking exactly on the same. And I think architecture gave me the understanding that everything existed already. It's just how we reinterpret the things that are happening. Because at the end, there are different technologies all over the place, but we get inspired with things that we're looking at in this event. But the way we reinterpret with the inputs that we have throughout our experience, what allows new things to happen. So I think it's extremely important, that aspect.
Just to add to it, while I might not be a designer, I sure act like it sometimes. I have opinions. Where I find is that, at least where it's been the focus for us, and my personal background has been on adoption. What does it take to get this technology adopted? And what does it take for a business to adopt it into their process? And how do you make that simple? How do you make it accessible? How do you make the cost of it palatable, right? Because you are fundamentally changing someone from doing what they are doing today. It became the status quo, and often at least in the industry with which our company is working in, boy, is it hard to change habits, right? Everyone thinks, hey, how I'm doing things today, this is the best way, nobody does it like me, right? This is the most efficient way. Well, there is just nothing but inefficiency and spillage, if you will, all over the place. And so we have to do is figure out creative ways in which whether it's education around the product and how it will work for them, how to actually run it for them, right? So as to make and retrain the people that would use newer technology. So people that might be actually removing materials off of a belt, right? One after the other. Well, how do you train that person to actually take care of this equipment, right? That's actually a newer skill set. And then ultimately is, how do you let people pay for it? Because we are running a business, and we have to make sure that one, it's a palatable acquisition for them, that there's the return that they are looking for, so that they are getting the results that ultimately that we've promised, but that they were promising, other folks in order to get something funded. So it's for us, it's just really around adoption, and then making sure that we're being consistent with what we said we were going to do, and then actually doing it.
We have another future fixer around here. Yeah.
Right. Yes. So hello, my name is Oscar. I'm 18 years old, and I got really inspired by the talks of you. So thank you very much. And I was wondering, me and also my friend Dan, we also would really love to start a startup in the future, because we really want to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And we were wondering, you guys have a lot of experience. Which tips would you give to young people to start up their own business, to work around solutions?
Thank you.
I would say you have to truly believe in the problem that you want to solve, because you're going to find many setbacks, many people saying that it's not possible. So endurance is going to be key to allow the idea that you have in your head to be physical, to be happening, to be real. So I would say endurance and believing strongly in what you want to do.
I totally agree with Simon about that. You should love what you do, or it's impossible, or it doesn't make sense, at least. And also try to keep it flexible, low costs, and also collaborate with a lot of people that already have the knowledge and the experience. And it doesn't make sense to start from scratch because there's a lot of things going on. So you should start collaborating and talking to people, and also, yeah, keeping it flexible.
I would say you're 18 and you're here. You have passion.
Yeah, sure.
And that is the most impressive thing. And so you have to find a way, right, in order to keep that. What I would say, which is probably going to be the sexiest answer, if you will, is if you're trying to start a business, is look at other business and try to figure out how they make money. If you are looking for, say, a for-profit business, and try to really understand how do they fund that business. Not shying away from actually how does a business run, I think is incredibly critical of a skill to learn at a very young age. Those that I've worked with through numbers of different startups, the way is they picked up that skill very quickly, and they did it on the job. But they were intensely, curious as to how is this business running, and so it helps refine the idea, because ultimately, at least what we found at our company is that we had the technology. Artificial intelligence was at the starting point. It was going to be scaled rapidly, but the hardest part was actually building the robot or the data system. It was actually building the business. How do you get people to buy this, and how do you fund ultimately, right, the company? I think that is really an important skill, is to take it slowly, but to really never lose sight of kind of, well, that's going to be an incredible skill that will last with you for your entire career.
Leonard, Lara, do you have any tip for future fixers, entrepreneurs?
Sure. Well, I agree to everything that was said before. I think the real key is persistence and talk to lots of people. There's lots of knowledge out there, use it, and you should start with the customer. Start with the needs, because your customer will want something. You solve a problem for your customer ultimately, and that's there where you need to start. And then from there on, you can build the rest. I come from an engineering faculty, and it always goes the other way around. People start thinking of solutions first, and technologies first, and then they start building that and think of a customer afterwards. That rarely ever works.
Yeah, I will partly disagree with some of you, but we have different opinions, obviously. I would answer to your question saying, don't think on making business. Yeah, because I think if you want to change something, if you want to think of closing loops or whatever, the point is not the business or the money, but other thing. And also my second tip would be think in more than human needs. So take into account other beings and the environment. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay, so thank you very much. We hope you have now more tools, some ideas and inspiration to join these awesome future fixers in our global challenge of closing the waste loop. We are taking a little break, and we invite you to join here the next session in some minutes called Rediscovering Our Resources. Thank you very much.